Ladies and gentlemen, right now, everyone's favorite Somalian congressional representative Ilhan Omar is absolutely melting down because of President Trump's brand new executive order. You see, just 2 days ago, President Trump signed an executive order that completely shuts down all travel from 12 different countries that the Trump administration has identified as being high risk. Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Travel from all of these countries has been completely shut down because these countries have all been directly linked to things like terrorism and visa fraud. And so, folks, like I said, right now, Somalian Congressional Representative Ilhan Omar is absolutely livid about this entire situation. But what if I told you that there's a little bit more here to the story than meets the eye? Well, first off, take a look at this. Just yesterday afternoon, Somalian Congressional Representative Ilhan Omar issued this absolutely scathing statement. This discriminatory policy is beyond shameful. Just like his first Muslim ban, this latest announcement flies in the face of basic morality and goes directly against our values. This racist policy will not make us safe. It will separate families and endanger lives. We cannot let it stand. So you hear that, folks? According to Somalian Congressional Representative Ilhan Omar, shutting down travel from known terrorist hotspots is racist. Isn't that a little bit weird? I wonder if she might be projecting a little bit here.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but a fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Of course, members of the far left, like Ilhan Omar, are calling President Trump's travel ban racist. But really, this is just yet another classic example of projection coming from the progressive left. And now, folks, believe me when I say this, you haven't even seen the craziest part about all of this. But before we get to that, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, check out this report which details why a travel ban like this is so necessary in the first place.
I commend the president for implementing this badly needed and overdue ban on countries where we really can't vet anyone. Countries have a history of known violence and terrorism. Take, for instance, Haiti and Somalia. You have gang violence that is basically controlling all of Haiti. You have Islamic terrorism across Somalia. And what does it even mean to vet someone from those countries? There's no governing institutions there that can do background checks. This has long been a lie from the left wing about how we're going to do background checks on illegal immigrants or people coming from dangerous countries. It's simply not possible. I mean, consider what we do for young Americans who want to go in the military or the law enforcement. You know, they have to say where they've lived. You call up the police department, you call the state police, you do background checks, you make sure that they're suited for the job. There are no institutions in many of these countries where you can do these things. So this is another common sense victory for President Trump and America's safety.
Senator Congressman Dan Goldman says it's because they're not white. That's why Trump is looking to ban or limit them.
No, it's because they're dangerous and they could get us killed. We saw over the weekend in Boulder, Colorado, the danger of having foreign nationals coming to this country without being properly vetted. And in many countries, they can't be properly vetted. We shouldn't allow people in from those countries if they're going to pose a risk to Americans.
And so, folks, posing a risk to Americans is exactly what's been happening. In fact, we actually have a very recent example of why a travel ban like this is so necessary. The man who carried out the recent Colorado Molotov cocktail terror attack was actually an immigrant from Egypt who overstayed his visa, remaining in the country illegally. So to be very clear, if President Trump's travel ban had been in effect years ago, that terror attack never would have happened. But get this, just the other day when the Trump administration tried to deport all of that terrorists' family members back to Egypt, all of whom were also here in the country illegally, yet another radically progressive judge from the federal judiciary stepped in and halted President Trump's deportation efforts. And on that note, take a look at this.
In this case, a Colorado judge halted the administration's attempt to deport this alleged attacker's entire family, his wife, and children ranging from 4 to 18. Let me just read for you, Scott, and then you can respond what the attorney for the family said. Punishing individuals, including children as young as 4 years old, for the purported actions of their relatives is a feature of medieval justice systems or police state dictatorships, not democracies.
Is this family in the country illegally or not?
Actually, I'm not sure.
I think they may not be.
I'm not sure.
And obviously in the household, you have extreme radicalism, and that has now led to the literal burning of American citizens on the streets of this country in a clear act of domestic terrorism. And so, again, we have an individual district court judge stepping in here to try to prevent the commander-in-chief of the United States from protecting Americans from a clear invasion of radicalism. That's number one. Number two, regarding the travel ban, he has a great reason. These countries don't vet people. They don't share information. People who come from these countries, which all, by the way, the link is the governments are essentially failed states. They're not functioning. And so they overstay their visas. All of these countries present massive problems for our own government when trying to figure out who's coming here, why, and how long they're going to stay, and what are they going to do when they get here. We have had an awakening in this country of the abuse of the visa system. If you're on a visa, you don't have a right to be here. You're a guest in this country, and we've seen a number of our guests turn on actual Americans that it needs to stop.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, CNN's Scott Jennings is absolutely correct. It needs to stop, and that's exactly what President Trump's executive order does. What this travel ban does is fulfill President Trump's campaign promise to secure our borders and to restore an America First immigration policy. And the best part about this is that back in 2018, when President Trump issued his first travel ban, the Supreme Court actually upheld it. So we know that what he's doing is constitutional for a fact. But so folks, real quick, let's get back to Somalian Congressional Representative Ilhan Omar. Take a look at this.
Make no mistake, this discriminatory policy is shameful, and as history books look back at this moment, it will be a stain on our country.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, she is mad. Right now, she's actually out on the streets protesting against President Trump's travel ban, and we all know why. It's because her entire political career is centered around doing what's best for not Americans, but Somalians. Seriously, every single thing she does is completely focused on not just bettering the lives of Somalian immigrants here in America, but also trying to get more Somalian immigrants here in America. Sticking up for actual American citizens? She's not so interested. And so now that President Trump has completely shut down all travel and immigration from Somalia, she's totally melting down. She's losing her mind. But you know what? Here's my honest opinion. If she cares so much about Somalians, maybe she should just go back to Somalia. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, right now over here in America, we are putting America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.